here between you guys, and we'll branch out from that because I know that both you guys want to talk about some other topics maybe, and we'll see where we go from there. But as far as climate change goes, I know that Ramon believes climate change is, I believe you acknowledge it as a real thing, correct?
Well, it is a scientific fact. I mean,
Right.
It's always
right.
Yeah, it's always changing.
But you also think that it's being used as an excuse by the powers that be, especially in regards to the Great Reset, correct?
Well, yeah, I mean that's a documented fact. In the 1960s, they were talking about global cooling all throughout the 70s. A lot of those scientists are still alive. You can read their dissents. There is no lack of consensus on change. The climate has always been changing. It's been hotter and colder within human history, within recorded human history, and also in archaic and ancient human history and in paleo history. We have survived much hotter and much colder environments. We've survived water at much lower levels, and we've survived water at higher levels. So this is not really news. The mechanism is what's misunderstood, and the politicization of carbon is just a convenient vehicle. And it just so happens that carbon is tied to oil. How interesting! How'd that happen? So that's my general. I can go into the science, but it's probably going to make people.
Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. So, Cluck, you believe that essentially that everything they say about climate change is correct. All the hysteria is correct, and it has no tie into the so-called Great Reset. Correct?
I don't think that it's got a tie into this. I don't think that there's like this purposeful effort to from some shadowy powers above us to. I'm guessing the Great Reset is in terms of demographics. They want to get rid of white people and replace them with brown people for some reason.
No. I don't think that's that. I don't think that's what most people are talking about when they're talking about the Great Reset. Personally, I could be wrong, but
right. So
you're talking about like the reset of like.
I think legit. I think what people are saying. Let me just lay it out. I think what people are saying is talking about what the World Economic Forum said about, you'll own nothing and be happy about it, and they're seeing all these crazy things happen all of a sudden, and the government's overreaching to implement policies that seem like getting to the points that forum has laid out. Right? Am I wrong?
So I think that climate change is a phenomenon that has happened. When people typically talk about climate change, they're usually talking about the specific changes that's happening due to post-industrial revolution human activity, the burning of fossil fuels, and also to a extent the mass production of cattle, which is putting methane into the air, which is a much more potent greenhouse gas than carbon actually is. That's what they're usually talking about. So when somebody says something like, well, the climate's always changing, that's true. But it's not to the extent that we have seen so far naturally. And even if it was a natural phenomenon, that doesn't change the negative impacts that these changes are going to have on our current society. Yes, humans have survived worse in the past, maybe, but they didn't survive well. They didn't live well. They didn't live the standard of life that we are living today. And yeah, that's kind of what I have to say.
Yeah, climate change is a real thing, and as far as the government's approach to dealing with it, you're all in on that and without question or scrutiny?
Well, we would have to talk about individual policies. I don't really, yeah.
All right, well, we might get into that. So, Raymond, so do you acknowledge that? So we already, I think, covered this, but you acknowledge that climate change is a real thing. I mean, do you think that it is as big a threat as Cluck does?
Well, I mean, the changes that are occurring because all of the climates in the solar system are changing are pretty severe. Not as severe as the degradation of the magnetosphere, because it's already massively degraded in the last 100 years. That has nothing to do with industrialization. It will affect our satellite infrastructure, our telecommunications, which is already
talking about like the pole shifts.
Correct. The magnetic poles are moving at an accelerating rate, and they're going to converge near to Indonesia. We don't know exactly what will happen.
Like we're making a huge like we're jumping into a whole other thing. But go ahead.
No.
Just saying.
But it's important to understand that the powers that exist know all of this. They have the data. They have the NASA data. They know that Venus and Saturn, Neptune, Titan's climates are all changing. They just don't care. That is what's important.
Yeah, I've heard about that, actually. I remember reading about that forever ago, like even 20 years ago, about how like planets in the solar system were warming up and things like that. Is that what you're talking about?
If somebody could, hit a little bit of mute. Well, it's actually accelerated in the last year and a half. So back up in November 2019, the satellite Juno, actually we observed the reconnection of the south pole of Saturn to the south pole of Jupiter through what are called Birkeland currents. And we've observed increasing acceleration of these changes, increases of wind speed on Neptune, and changes in color to various bodies. The Earth is undergoing these pressures because of the what are called the current sheets that are in the space. And they've only recently acknowledged that the sun has an electric field. They just finally started acknowledging that, which it's been calculated for many decades. How that gets mixed up into the oil thing really has a lot to do with the politics of oil, is really where that's coming from, and the control of energy. And in this case, energy that people burn. But as far as will people survive? Yeah, people will survive. Even the rate that they tell you, when you actually look at the rate that the water would supposedly go up, it's such a slow rate that literally no one will be under threat. They'll just have to move. And people have done that for a long time. At one point, the Straits of Gibraltar broke open, and everybody who was living in the Mediterranean seabed had to flee.
Yeah, this is a thing that's always happened as far as sea level. Yeah.
Right. It won't be a drastic sudden shift. Even in the Younger Dress event, when the sea level rose by like 80 meters or something like that, it happened over decades of time. It didn't happen as sudden mega tsunami come through. That's not what was occurring when we talk about climate change. So, as far as global warming, man-made global warming, carbon, I'm going to tell you this, carbon has nothing to do with man-made global warming. If there's man-made global warming, it could be methane, but termite hills and ant hills produce way more methane than cattle do worldwide. So that's not an issue. Carbon, if you put all the atmosphere into a football field, carbon is the last inch before the goal line. We actually are not going to have enough carbon dioxide in the atmosphere in the far future of humanity. But for right now, I mean, I'm not against putting trees. I'm totally against pollution. The blanching of the coral reefs has nothing at all to do with global warming. It has to do with the crap that Asia and all those countries over there are dumping into the oceans, and the pollution is a serious problem. It's got to be fixed. It's an engineering problem, and it's an opportunity.
Right, and I like that you said that, because I think the so-called right wing gets this reputation, obviously, I think because of propaganda, that we hate the earth and we want to destroy it. We don't care.
Right.
Most of us, I think, are pretty much on board, like, for most part, on most of this stuff. Like, we're just questioning like government overreach for the most part, right?
Well, and as well we should. I'm a conservationist, not an environmentalist, and you can watch that documentary that was put out, Michael Moore helped produce, and you can see a person who's on the left wake up to what the environmentalists are doing and how they're in bed. Burning wood to make energy from gases inside the wood makes no sense at all. When you
right. There's a lot of useless idiots in the environmentalist movement, basically.
Correct. And so the politics of power and oil is really the main issue, and then the convenience of carbon taxing and carbon power. Of course, if Al Gore really cared about any of this, he'd close down his mansion and all of his jet planes, stop telling us all how to live.
Cluck, what are your feelings on this stuff? I mean, do you?
On which aspect? crap! He just went on for like an hour and
I'm gonna let you.
30
I'm gonna let you too. And I want to ask you.
But no, I'm not interested in going on an hour about 137,000 things. I guess we could start with where he started. What was the reason why you even brought up the magnetic fields? Like, how does that tie into global warming? What is that about?
He's saying there's other factors at play basically in climate change. And
so he's blaming the magnetic.
So let me say this, Cluck. Here, I'll lay it out. So I think we all agree that climate change is a real thing, and I think it's been happening a long time, and we all, agree to that point. And he's, I think, putting out there that there's other things at play affecting our climates and warming them up, not just on Earth, but other planets in the solar system. Yeah,
everything is changing.
So wait, so is it that magnetic fields are helping warm the Earth, or is the magnetic fields just like another topic altogether that you're using?
I don't know about the magnetic fields personally, but it's just that this is something that's happening throughout the solar system.
Okay,
right. So the degradation of the magnetosphere has been measured happening since about 1880. And the changing electric field is because of the changing electric environment in space. The variability of the sun has been measured, and it's due to small wobbles in our relationship to the sun. So there's always little variations. And I have, not my papers, I mean, there are other scientists who have done the mathematics on these papers, and they can show you these small variations basically correlate exactly to the small changes in our environment. There's also a repetitive 11-year cycle in the sun, and that 11-year cycle is an electrical behavior. And all of this is happening. It's way above humans' pay grade. Now, humans do affect weather, and that may be disturbing, except for it's the opposite of what you would think. So when you have a lot of clearing, like in Borneo, you get a lack of rainfall. So you wouldn't be having massive flooding events. It's not like the left.
Okay, so what you're saying is because the magnetic sphere is degrading. Wait, what do you mean? No, I didn't even make a claim.
Yeah, just let him go. Let's let him go ahead and talk.
Magnetosphere.
Let's.
Okay, so what is the point of bringing up the magnetosphere there?
Well, he asked me about the planet changing, and I mentioned that there is correlating data about the magnetosphere changing. What's happened also since 1880? Industrialization. So you're blaming one thing, but it has nothing directly to industrialization.
Your claim is still that it's just a natural phenomenon that's happening on the Earth. That's what your claim is.
Climate change is a natural phenomenon. Yes, that's a fact.
Okay. So you think that the warming, since the increased warming since the Industrial Revolution, is a thing that would have happened without the Industrial Revolution?
Some places have. First of all, some places have warmed and some places have cooled.
Some places have cooled. Yeah. Climate change affects different areas.
If you're still relying on maps where they manipulate the data to where the red shows up more than the blue, you're going to be missing it. But the average, if you're talking about the average global temperature rising very slightly, yeah, that's a normal phenomenon. That's going to always happen.
See, this thing is that the rate, it's the rate at which the temperatures have risen. It has went up since the Industrial Revolution. Is that just a coincidence?
But guess what? It was going up before that too. So you're ignoring all the data before that.
Well, no, it was going up, but the rate at which it was going up has increased. The rate at which it was going up steadily, and then it started going up faster after the Industrial Revolution.
What I say? What has been increasing at an accelerated rate? The degradation of the magnetosphere. So there's an accelerating change in the electric environment.
So the magnetosphere is causing global warming, is what you're saying?
No, well, if you cut me off, that's what's going to happen. So why don't you shut your mouth for a second? Just shut up for a second.
Why are you bringing it up, though? It's irrelevant. You would just admit it.
It's not irrelevant. It's just you don't understand it. Okay? If the magnetosphere is changing because of a changing electrical environment around the Earth, and that electrical environment is a connection between the Earth and the sun that has been measured by science, that is relevant. Whether or not you understand it is not. It doesn't matter to me.
Well, I don't understand your point in bringing up the magnetosphere.
That's what I'm saying.
Climate
right over your head.
A climate change. When you keep telling me that it's not what's causing climate change.
Man is not causing climate change. Man is not causing climate change.
Okay, so do you disagree with the idea that carbon dioxide can hold in heat?
Carbon dioxide could hold in heat, except for carbon dioxide sinks in the atmosphere. So, kind of irrelevant.
Wait, carbon dioxide is what?
It sinks. It sinks in the atmosphere.
So you don't think that there's more carbon dioxide in our atmosphere now than
There's
it
more
was
carbon dioxide in the atmosphere by 0.01% more. Yeah, it's 0.01% more.
Okay, so
do we know to what degree carbon dioxide is warming the planet? Like,
It's
do we
not-
know?
I don't
Like,
personally-
do we
not
know?
warming
Like, is there a number that's like carbon
There's a
dioxide is
number.
causing this much more warming?
But the number they've admitted, the number that they've calculated is this, and the error margin is this, which means they don't know. Inside of that error margin, they don't honestly know. And that's why there's disagreement in the community of actual scientists, not the part where they send it out to the media.
well,
Off
I
topic.
mean,
Okay,
99% of scientists, 99% of
That's
scientists
bullshit.
even man-made global warming. It's not bullshit. Like
That's
there's
it.
more consensus on this than
It's complete
there
bullshit.
is
100%
smokers.
Hold on, Raymond. Hold on. Go ahead, Cluck.
Yeah, but what he's saying is bullshit, just so you know.
Hold on. Okay. Hold on.
So just because Raymond has his like little handful of
Raymond,
I'm
come
sorry,
on. Let him talk, man. Come on. He let
just
you
because
talk every
Ramon
time.
has his handful of scientists that disagree with the overwhelming consensus on climate change doesn't mean that like it's still not an overwhelming consensus within the climate community, climate science community.
Hey, let me ask you a question then. Consensus science. What's the consensus science of what causes fusion?
I have no fucking idea. We're not talking about fusion.
Yeah,
We're talking about climate change.
Yeah, let's not.
Like,
let's
like-
not
you brought up
that's
consensus
gish galloping, I
science.
think. And
Hold on, you brought up consensus fucking science. What's the consensus on what causes fusion?
I don't know. I didn't study
Then why, if
fusion.
you don't know, well,
I'll allow it, though.
If you don't
Go
know,
ahead.
then why are you bringing up the consensus on things that you don't know about? Which
Because
is not
because
true.
I know that the consensus of climate
That's
change
shit
is
read.
that it's man-made.
CNN has told you. CNN has
But
told
that
you
is
there's a
lazy,
consensus.
though,
I don't
Cluck. You
watch.
gotta admit that.
Wait. I don't watch CNN. Like I don't know why y'all keep bringing up cable news when I don't even watch
fine.
cable news.
I don't think Cluck does watch cable news, guys. I honestly don't. I don't think he watches any TV.
Whatever
Or
you watch,
very little.
okay, tells you that there's a consensus, but there isn't. On one side of Antarctica, it's freezing and the ice is thickening. On the other side, it's melting. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. Just letting you
Yeah,
know.
the ice. Wait. Do you know why the ice is thickening in Antarctica? Because fresh water keeps melting into the ocean, making the ratio of salt to water be more water, which makes the freezing temperature of the ice lower. That's why it's
No.
freezing.
Cluck,
Yes.
can you get on camera?
But I just
Can
said
you get on camera,
the
buddy?
one side is freezing more and the other
Mhm.
side is melting more because it's shifting position. There's
It could also
variability.
be.
There's
Wait,
variability
it could also.
in the rotation rate of the Earth and in the tilt of the Earth. Period. This is a mathematical fact.
Hmm. And you don't think that climate scientists are like taking those variabilities into their figures?
Real climate scientists are.
Well-
And guess what? When people visit those places, they tell them what's in the news is bullshit. That's what they tell them.
Cluck, I would just
I'm
ask you
here.
real quick, because I think this is an interesting point. It actually gets to the crux of a lot of this. Is do you trust the ultimate decisions of these people as far as like what all the factors are and what I guess I don't know, like you just said that you trust whatever that group told you about. Like we're just talking about things that are so astronomical and hard to like really understand. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And, like why do you like put so much faith in like what they say about it? Because when it comes to the environment, especially, there's so many factors that are really playing, and like Ramon brought up, there really is things going on in the solar system as far as planets forming. I mean, and those factors don't get talked about. And I think it's interesting that if you actually compare that to a lot of different issues as it pertains to our society and the media, you get the same kind of thing with all of those. Like you don't get a full discussion on all the facts. I don't know. What do you think about that? Do you think it's just open and shut or what?
Sorry, I it's kind of late, so I thought maybe there would be a problem. There was a problem.
No, I'm sorry. No, you're good, man. I'm just rambling anyway, dude. This is all just like off the cuff kind of shit. So I'm just.
You're not on my. I think I gotta reconnect because you're not on my Bluetooth anymore.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, I heard you. I don't know if anybody else is having
No.
trouble.
Yeah, he's on Bluetooth headset. So it might disconnect. You know how Bluetooth is. It probably
Okay,
disconnected
well,
while I was rambling there. But go
while we
ahead.
wait for him,
Go ahead.
I want to clarify for people the difference between the Great Reset and the Great Replacement. The Great Replacement is a UN thing, and you can go to the United Nations website and read about the Great Replacement. The Great Reset is an economic thing from the World Economic Forum, and they have bragged. Klaus Schwab has bragged about having young governmental leaders such as Justin Trudeau infiltrating governments, and they've called it penetrating. Actually, they call it penetrating the government.
I did see that.
So
Yeah.
two different conspiracy topics.
That's interesting. We should talk about that. I think that's really interesting because there's a lot of shit about Trudeau in general. We could talk about this. Well, I don't know where Cluck stands though on that. I'm not going to just assume it. Cluck, did you hear us?
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
I have no idea.
I can't get this shit to work on my Bluetooth anymore.
I hear you.
Is it still clear?
Yeah, I hear
It's
you.
clear.
Great. You sound great, actually. Better than I've ever heard you on here.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll go with it then.
Yeah, man. I don't know. We kind of started moving it. I don't know if we should. Just
Well, I think that you were asking him if he just believes that we should do whatever policy is suggested by, someone like Greta,
right?
Politicians, and then the politicians just go with it and announce we're going to make big sweeping changes like the Green New Deal. And I think that was basically the gist of your question.
Right. Exactly. I mean, do you think we should just go with whatever? Like right now, we have major inflation, which was predicted and denied by the Democrats, right? And Biden himself, which we're getting anyway, and they've had excuse after excuse after excuse of who's to blame for it, and this stuff just keeps going. I mean, are you willing to just go with like what I call the climate cult? Do you think?
Wait, what are they blaming?
No, I'm saying
blaming for what?
What I'm saying is like as far as climate change goes and what the mainstream says about it, do you think that we should just go along with whatever they suggest without scrutiny?
Okay, so I'm a big believer in science.
Right.
If
Me
people
too.
who spend their lives studying this stuff, who understand it way more than I do, and I'm reading the numbers on NASA, 97% of them are saying one thing. I'm gonna go ahead and believe that one thing and not believe the guy on the internet who tells me that the magnetic fields are causing climate change, but they're not causing climate change, or whatever the hell he's trying to say.
Because you don't understand it, don't misstate it, which is a really dumbass thing to do. Let me tell you something about NASA. They have gone out of their way to try and measure the comets and find out if there's water on them. Okay, they call it the Oort cloud, and they postulated based on this guy named Oort that they were all dirty snowballs. They sent up a craft. That craft had a probe. That probe, when they shot it, bounced off of the rock. So these NASA scientists have made assumptions, and then when you go and look, they make the corrections, but then they don't tell the public that they've made those corrections. They now know that comets are electrical and they're giant rocks, and that their comet tails are not water ice, and all the water on them is due to hydrogen mixing with oxygen ions. They know that, but they don't go out of the way to tell people like you, because people like you will believe anything. And so if you'll believe whatever they say, then you're going to fund whatever. You're never going to call Congress and say, hey, I think that climate change might actually be mediated by the electric changes in the environment. What do you think? Do you think maybe we shouldn't destroy our economy, which happens to benefit who? China, Russia, OPEC. Whenever we get strong with natural gas and oil, isn't that fucking convenient? That's what I'm saying.
So one thing that you did in that rant, and you did a couple things, but one thing you did in that,
don't bother with Meta. Don't bother.
One thing that you did in that rant was you did this thing that conservatives like to do, and they like to look at a prediction.
Let him talk, Raymond. Raymond, let him talk. Let him talk.
They like to look at a prediction that an institution made in the past, and because it was wrong, they'll try and discredit that institution based off of that wrong prediction. Even though when that institution found out it was wrong, they changed their beliefs based off of their new findings, which is a whole lot more than I can say about most people that have strong political ideologies. So I'm going to go ahead and just go with what NASA is saying on climate change
So
over
many
some
mistakes just
random
now.
guy on the internet.
You made so many mistakes just now. Number one, I'm libertarian. So I'm not a conservative, okay? I'm socially liberal and fiscally conservative. Number two, okay, the ESA is just like NASA. They actually put out a movie propaganda about how much water they were going to find. Did they actually announce that they didn't find water? No. They have their little science reports in the background, but they don't tell you. The propaganda they sell beforehand is to raise the funding. But they don't bother telling you. You have to follow the science. So if you believe so much in science, how come you don't follow it? That's the question.
I don't care about water on asteroids. Like what do you mean?
Comets.
Or
Comets.
Whatever. Comets. I don't care about that stuff. That's why I didn't follow that.
I know you don't. So you don't care about science. Don't say you care about science.
No. I do trust the science over you. And
you trust
yes.
Is that sort of like trusting the government while they do STD vaccines on black people without their permission?
No, it's not like trusting the government while they do STDs, blah blah blah. It's like trusting a bunch of scientists who get paid to look into these phenomenons and explain them that using the scientific method. That's
the whole point. Use the scientific method. Let me ask you, if I can ask a personal question. How many boosters have you gotten?
I haven't gotten the booster.
Okay. Are you glad you didn't, because now the report has come out about the 1,200 side effects?
No, I am not glad I didn't. I wish I did. I just lazy.
Really? Okay, yes. Fair enough.
Because whatever, I don't know which report you're talking about, but I have a feeling that it's a bunch of bullshit. It might be true, but
it's not CDC. If you love science so much, how do you not know about this?
I guarantee you, it's not as drastic as you're making it out to sound.
1,200 side effects. Okay. All right. So now we know you're talking some shit. Let me tell you something. I have a patient, and she now has to carry around a defibrillator because of the Moderna booster.
Yeah, there's a bunch of patients that need to carry around a defibrillator because of COVID. Right. Like, it's the point.
My point is, she trusted the science too. That's not the point. That's not how scientific method works. Scientific method is you make an inquiry, you have a hypothesis, you do the test, you have controls, you have variables, you have the data, you write a report, you send it around, other people repeat the experiment. And when they repeated the experiment, guess what? It turned out that they had overestimated all the climate change stuff by two times the amount. And when they revised the numbers, they were inside the margin of error. They can't say specifically how much the climate is changing due to man-made effects. We do know that weather changes in specific regions due to human behaviors. We should treat the planet better. There are ways to do that, and those ways shouldn't involve dirty politics, right or left. They should involve working together based on actual science.
The NASA disagrees with you, so I'm going to go ahead and go with them.
That's fine. NASA has a SWAT team, so what? I don't care. I don't care if NASA disagrees.
Can I say something?
Anybody can talk. Yeah.
It's highly. I gotta say. I gotta say it's highly unorthodox, but I'll allow it.
Well, liberal Cluck. All right. See, you keep on saying these things like, well, see, this is how conservatives normally do this, and then you're trying to conflate that to what he's saying there, and you're not listening to what he's saying. You have this, ongoing theme about doing this, and you kind of started getting unhinged here with your conversations and how you're going about things, and you started getting a little more aggressive than you normally have been, and it's kind of coming to the point where you're about to have to apologize for saying something. And I'm trying to stop you.
I'm actually calm right now. Millionaire, I'm curious. What is he saying? I want you to tell me what he's saying that I'm not getting.
He takes just the popular opinion of the liberal aspect and of everything, and he tries to make everybody argue his position against his.
Well, hold on.
Or your position against his.
Well, hold on. Okay, Millionaire dude, I love you, bro, but let's mute. It's not fair to start bringing other people in on this. I'm sorry. It's not
What?
fair. Just mute. Maybe do you wanna take Ramon's place for a little bit? You gotta come on camera if you're going
I
to.
mean, I can't. No, I was just trying to cool the situation. It just seemed like it was getting a little heated, and I
Yeah,
was just
I
trying to
was enjoying it.
This
Cluck
wasn't
can
heated.
hold his own, you know.
Or something, you know. Just
Raymond's
kind
doing
of
good
calm
too,
down a
I
little.
gotta say.
You know, it's um.
All right, we're losing focus here. Okay, Millionaire, thank you for your piece. We got to keep these two guys, and then maybe we're gonna do like a group chat here afterwards. But back to what we were talking about. So where did we leave off? Like, so Cluck, an interesting point I actually thought was this whole like conflation of the Great Reset with the Great Replacement. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, when he said reset, I guess I was reading it great replacement.
Okay, yeah. See, I thought that was interesting actually, because even the Great Replacement, you gotta admit, like I never like gave it much thought or anything, but like there is something to that, I think. But besides that, should we talk about that?
So
On the UN website, it isn't a matter of debate. You can read about it on the UN website.
Yeah, the Great Replacement, or I'm sorry, the Great Reset is a real thing. Do you deny it?
It's like
So wait, hold on.
slavery.
So,
It's likely happening.
real quick.
It's happening.
Quickly define what the Great Reset is.
The Great Reset is an economic. Actually, very technically, it was the name of a conference, and I think it was either 2019 or 2020, held by the World Economic Forum, which is a invite only for people who are anywhere from low millionaires to billionaires. And they come in and discuss what world policy should be. It has nothing to do with anything you can vote on. Your congressman has no say in it. And then they go about trying to penetrate the government and pass around lobby funds and put together corporate written legislation, such as the Green New Deal, in order to change the behavior and policies of the governments of the world. Of course, the only ones that are listening are the dumb ones in the West. Everyone else would tell them to take a fucking hike, which is what we should do.
Okay, so basically there's this conference in which a bunch of rich people get together, talk about economic issues, and you think that this is some kind of shadowy organization that's
how do you deny
that's
the
infiltrating
fact?
the government.
How do you deny the fact though that like the things they talk about are being like they're being implemented, and the things that are happening you can easily see, you know,
On their website,
those policies being implemented.
Well, if
and they are
you
being
think about
suggested by people.
Okay, so if you think about something like the Green New Deal, which hasn't passed Congress, there's like a handful of Democrats that want to do it, and there's like some more Democrats that are reluctantly wanting to do it. But let's think about just climate policy in general. If you just put yourself in the shoes of somebody who believes the 97% of scientists who says that climate change is real, it's man-made,
Well, no, we know,
and it's going to have really bad effects on America and the world in the future. You would probably want to do something like that about that legislatively, correct?
But when you say that,
so
when you let me just quickly jump in here real quick. Millionaire, no. Well, I shouldn't even. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ramon. You respond. I'm the moderator.
So let's run with this premise, which is that that there is a consensus. It's not, but let's say that there is such a thing as consensus science, and that the consensus says such. Then their solutions are still all wrong, which because they all happen to involve what I call neo-feudalism. They involve creating very specific elites, eliminating property rights. Okay, there are several things that make a person liberal. One of them is property rights and individual ownership. Another one is your Bill of Rights in general. And if you have a group of, they're not shadowy, they publish who they are. Everyone knows who Klaus Schwab is, and he gives press conferences. And he tells you very specifically, if you think that things are going back to the way we had before COVID, that's not going to happen. That's what he says. Now, if you don't expect libertarians, independents, and conservatives, whether the Republican or far right, alt-right, to get up in arms about that kind of thing, you're living in a crazy world, because of course, none of us are going to give up our property because some bald ass over there thinks that we should all eat less beef while he flies around on jets. That's not going to happen.
So you think that when he said things aren't going back before COVID, he means that he's going that they're going to start seizing property? That's what you think he meant?
Well, I wonder, did anything happen in Canada maybe that we could refer specifically to? I don't know.
Wait, so do you think that he meant when he said things aren't going back to the way they were before, that they were going to start seizing property?
No, I don't think that they're going to martial law seize property. I do think.
So why did you connect those two in your rant?
I connected those two because they're fucking connected, and you can see that by the corporations buying up housing while the market is hot. They are eliminating private ownership. However, they're not doing it by.
Wait. Aren't corporations private-owned entities?
Yeah, they're private owned, and some of them go to the World Economic Forum.
Okay, so these private people are buying private property, but somehow the government
corporations are buying private property.
Yeah, corporations are private entities.
Some of them are public entities, but we'll let it slide that you don't know the difference.
Well, wait. Sometimes when people are saying public versus private, they are talking about government versus people. Sometimes when they say public versus private, if you're talking specifically like within the stock market, you're talking about like mom and pop versus like on the stock market. Now, which one are you talking about right now when you say private?
It's different companies. So there are private equity companies that are doing it, and there are public real estate companies that are doing it. And they're doing a number of other changes. I'm talking. You can wait. They're doing a number of other.
Wait, hold on. Wait. Raymond, if I do not understand what you're saying, everything else you're about to say, I'm not going to understand. Okay.
You can wait. Good. So some of the other things that they're doing is changing the fractional reserve lending requirements, tracking how many dollars that you deposit if you go over 600 or if you withdraw over 600. All of these things are happening at the same time. And guess what? They're all contained in the Lockstep project, and they're contained in several other documents. They publish this stuff publicly. The fact that you don't read it is on you. That has nothing to do with whether or not it is.
When you said these are private equity firms, what do you mean by public?
There are corporations who are also public. So they're big real estate companies, and they are also purchasing up properties while the market is hot.
By public, you mean just big?
No, I mean that there are companies that are on the stock exchange.
Okay, so that's what I was saying earlier, and so when you say public, you just mean companies that are on the stock exchange. These aren't government entities that are doing this.
Well, there are some that are receiving government subsidies, I'm sure, but I haven't looked in specifically to a company to see if they're receiving government subsidies. So I have no idea how much the government is directly involved in that. I just told you that the World Economic Forum is a non-governmental organization. You don't get to vote for it. You don't have a say.
I mean, that's capitalism, baby. Like, what do you mean? Private, public firms buying up property, that's capitalism. Like, I'm not sure why you have a problem with this as a capitalist.
Don't say I have a problem with capitalism. Between the two of us, I'm the one with the business, and you're the one who has a government job and still complains about the Wi-Fi prices. Okay, so don't even try to go that direction. I'm telling you that the World Economic Forum has publicly announced that they are going to change how people live and own property, and they are going to penetrate the government. That's the words that they have used openly on video. You can just go watch it on YouTube. They penetrate the governments, and they enact changes. And within the same period of time, you have changes to the monetary policy, currency policy, position towards cryptocurrency, and behaviors of people who are acknowledged WEF young governmental leaders like Justin Trudeau, who suddenly claim power and they want to control your crypto out of nowhere because it had nothing at all to do with COVID or anything going on. Those things are related. The fact that you can't understand them, I don't know what to do for you. Everybody else who would be listening to this can see it and can read the writing on the wall. And what I'm advertising to you, what I've been trying to tell you, is that independents, libertarians, Republicans, and anybody else who isn't on the far left, we are not going to sit here and just watch our property be taken away because some guy
by corporations.
Think he can.
By corporations, right?
Well, it could be corporations. It could be private equity. I mean, if an
it's also through legislation.
Yes, and it's a policy change
because the left is trying to legislate our property away from us, and people
how
like
is
you,
liberal? Anti-liberal. It's not.
What policy is going through that's going to make it easier for a corporation to take your property from you?
Cluck. All right. Whenever you was talking about the Green New Deal earlier, all right, and you was trying to say that just because the Green New Deal didn't get passed, that nothing is being passed because of the Green New Deal. That is, you're trying to equate all kinds of things, and you're just trying to make up this argument, dude. Like,
I just asked a question. I've been asking questions this entire time.
You're really not seeing the big picture here, and people are trying to tell you. And throughout this whole entire server, we've seen how you act. You know,
well, let's keep it non-personal. You know,
no, it's fine. It's fine because it's the way I act
on behaviors.
Yeah. So the way I act. The way I act.
I'm not interested in that. What I will do is but I'm not going to answer the question in couching terms that you use because you try to do this destiny stuff. What I will tell you is this. I'm glad the Green New Deal isn't being passed because there are, unfortunately, enough capitalists still around who understand what the importance of private property is. Now, when
you mean the same capitalists that are buying up people's property that you're like they're not going to take from us?
Everything that the Green New Deal has been about has already been.
Hold on, Millionaire. When we had
all energy has been completely stopped within this country, and that's what the Green New Deal was about. And it wasn't passed, but yet it has already been done.
It's still there, and the important thing for people to understand is that the congressmen themselves do not write these bills. They're written by corporations. They're inserted into by the lobbyists come in and they tell the people in the office to insert it. The congressman hasn't read it. We know that because Obamacare, famously, we have to pass it to read it and see what's in it. It's just not done that way. It's not like the people in the office are hammering out these bills trying to save the world. That is a lie, and don't believe these kinds of lies. It's not Dianne Feinstein's office or Elizabeth Warren. They're not typing up save the world bills. These bills come from interested parties, special interest groups, SIGs, and NGOs. They type up these 1,000+ page corporate documents, and then they submit them into the docket. And then whoever pays the most to get it seen into the floor, and then it goes through the commissions and all this stuff, eventually, 10 years later, it pops through like Affordable Care Act did or Patriot Act did. Patriot Act didn't come about because of 9/11. Patriot Act existed before that. In Kentucky, the anti-terrorism bill that was passed in 1998. It was passed well before 9/11. So these things are created ahead of time.
All right. Well, Kentucky and the federal government are two different entities, but that's okay. I want to go back to this idea that was literally. Wait. I want to go. I want to go back to this idea. First of all, well, there's so many things. So I'm not seeing the bigger picture. The reason I'm not seeing the bigger picture is because every time I dive into these bigger pictures, shit starts falling apart. That's why it seems like you guys depend on just looking at the bigger picture, but when you look at the individual details, it just doesn't add up. So for example, Raymond's over here talking about how they're going to take your property, but then when he gives examples of that happening, he's talking about private corporations that are publicly traded on the stock market, but private corporations taking your property. This isn't like a government thing. If you want to stop this thing, you need the government to regulate this kind of thing.
Red flag law.
That's asking the fox to regulate the hen house. Where do you think these corporations get their subsidies from? Who do you think that they're lobbying? Who do you think that they're sleeping with? Literally. Who do you think that they're doing cocaine with? It's not you. So you're out working.
What policies are on the books right now that's making it to where these corporations can come and take your property? And
Stop
which one's being proposed?
You need the government.
I will, since this wasn't a topic, I will open up this New York Post article about that you could have done a DuckDuckGo on and satisfied this random curiosity you have, and look at how corporations are buying up houses and robbing families of the American dream. You could do that.
I don't
And I
doubt.
can do that.
I don't doubt.
could
I
do
don't
that.
doubt that. Wait, Raymond. I don't doubt that corporations are buying up property. What I'm saying is
Good.
that this isn't.
Thank you for agreeing.
What I'm saying is that this is just like a natural phenomenon of capitalism, and not some kind of like government ploy to get.
Who's that government ploy? How many times do I have to tell you the World Economic Forum is a non-governmental organization?
Mhm.
Are
Yeah.
you daft?
So what is your solution to this?
Well, eliminate lobbies, all lobbies, including the NRA. All lobbies.
So
They need to go.
which regulations, which policies on the books would have not been passed to help these people buy up property without lobbies?
I tell you what, I will do a little research and let you know about that.
You
Why
don't know.
do-
So you wait. You don't
why don't
know
you-
though.
hey, why don't
You're
you- why
making
don't
the
you-
claim, Raymond.
Why don't you keep your
Raymond,
mouth
you're
closed
making
for
the
5
claim, not me.
Keep your mouth closed for 5 seconds. You go and look up who Klaus Schwab is and what the World Economic Forum is, and become educated on
he
the
doesn't
changes
know
that
who
are
that
happening,
guy
whether or
is.
not you like it. We all know, your living conditions. You don't care what happens with our homes, but we do.
Okay. So the left has been railing against corporatism and corporate power for a very long time.
Yeah, I know. Being libertarian, I would know that, wouldn't I?
So,
Yeah,
Cluck, was the civil rights movement of the 60s a lobby?
I'm sure they had lobbyists inside the government.
Okay. So, would you say that was not a good thing or a bad thing, since you're obviously...
I think that people being able to lobby the government is probably a good thing. Where it becomes a problem is when certain entities have a lot more lobbying power than
So
the average person.
who does determine who those entities are, good or bad? Since you obviously have a completely different idea of what the world should be than everybody else here, all right, and you disagree with everybody else here, you wouldn't want
Well,
anybody else here want to be involved in the decision of who is good or bad, because obviously you think a lot of our ideas are bad. So who is your idea of who is good or bad here? That is our objective on trying to find out on what you do here, because you do play a lot of runaround games. So
Rome asks
wait,
you,
first of all, I'm not playing runaround games. I'm trying to get down to singular points to have this discussion, and not have a discussion about 20,000
right now,
points at
dude.
the same time.
Sorry.
That's why
except for
every
you,
that's why every
except
time
you have
Raymond
derailed the conversation into random
Yeah.
policy about flying, right? So
That's
you
why every
want
time
to
Raymond-
focus down. You want to focus down, except for you don't want to focus on the specific science that I brought up. So you make this claim that people don't focus, specifically me, don't focus on specifics. I give you specifics, and then you change the topic to something else.
Raymond,
which
Raymond, when we were talking about climate change, I doubled down. Okay, I doubled down on your statement about magnetism. I spent time trying to understand what you were trying to say about magnetism. So it wasn't me trying to ignore the specific science that you brought
You didn't
up.
spend time. You used some disparaging tones, and then you misstated what I
Turned out to
said.
be irrelevant. I'm sorry that your points turned out to be irrelevant. That's not my fault.
No, your lack of education is completely relevant, but all the science that I mentioned is absolutely relevant. And guess what?
It's
NASA
really not
also
climate
agrees.
change.
So it's pretty
No,
hard
actually-
for you. Hard for you. Must be really
Actually,
tough.
while you were rambling, I looked up the effects
I'm
of
not pointing at us.
magnetism on climate change, and
You-
NASA said that it has no
You
effect.
changed the topic. So you say you want to drill down, but you changed the topic over here to talk about something completely else. So don't claim that other people aren't drilling down. You have changed the topic over here to talk about homes.
No, Raymond, that was you.
No, I brought it up, but I didn't drill down into that.
You brought it up. Yes, you brought it
I
up.
brought it
Therefore,
up.
you changed the subject.
Yeah, I brought it up, but I didn't drill down into it. The topic, if you would recall, was the Great Reset. That was the topic.
Raymond, if you're not willing to drill into a topic, then don't bring it up.
Dude, to be honest with you,
the topic
you always bring up topics, but you never get into the actual subject of it. You never get into what you believe. You always try to drill everybody else on what they believe, but you don't want to actually say or define what you believe.
Well,
Are you talking to me right now?
Yes, I'm talking to you.
Millionaire, hold on.
Always
Give him.
do it.
I want to know. Okay, hold on, Millionaire. Do us a favor, because this is it's supposed to be between me and him. Listen, Cluck. You know, we were talking about the Great Reset.
Mm-hmm.
You asked me to tell you about the Great Reset. I tell you about the Great Reset, and drill down into something else that turned out to be nothing to do with what we were actually talking about.
You brought it up as a part of your explanation to the Great Reset.
It is a part of the Great Reset. That is something they have. The World Economic Forum, a non-governmental organization, has said you will own nothing and be happy about it. They didn't say, I'm going to come steal your homes. That's not how it's working.
I mean, that's the way you made it sound. I'm sorry.
No, it's not. It's the way you took it because you don't listen.
It is.
No, it isn't. And if you ask 10,000 people on his show,
you said something to the gist of. You said something to the gist of.
Magnetospheres cause climate change. I didn't say magnetospheres cause climate change.
Then why did you bring up that magnetospheres?
Once again, try to understand. The magnetosphere is an indicator of changes to the electric environment in which the sun and Earth are in together. Around the Milky Way, it is always changing. The position relative of each and the tilt angles are also always changing. So there's a continuous variability. We had something called the Maunder minimum. The Maunder minimum had to do with the sun. And we were accelerating, warming up out of the Maunder minimum. This is a fact. You don't need me to look it up. It is something that anyone can look up, the temperatures based on ice core data from hundreds of thousands of years. So you are missing the point. The changes that are happening are natural. Industrialization is also happening at the same time. It's easy for us to blame ourselves, but that is not what the science shows.
Well, I guarantee you that the 97% of scientists that believe in man-made climate change has already taken that into consideration with their models.
I doubt it. You go and do that research and ask the 97%, ask them, which that number is totally bunk, but ask them.
I unfortunately do not have
hold on, let me ask them. I'm going to give you, ask them, are they aware that all the climates are changing in the solar system? Because there's no industrialization on Venus. Sorry,
I unfortunately do not have access to any climate scientists. I've only got access to.
When I meet some, I'll ask them. I mean, you're trusting a so-called scientist. I've got the words of a Nobel laureate in my email calling the Earth two-dimensional while space-time is four-dimensional. Just because they're people with letters after their name does not mean that they're necessarily honest. These people have money, they have prestige, they have power.
Around the world, Raymond. It's not just American scientists.
It's not. Who said anything about America? I didn't say anything about America specifically.
Yeah. No, I'm bringing that up. That's a claim I make because apparently I don't make claims.
The consensus is the climate is changing. However, at the same time Al Gore was making his movie, we had not yet gone up to the space with certain types of craft, nor did we have a Large Hadron Collider. Everything in the science has been changing very rapidly since 2015. Several paradigms have been discluded out of the standard model because things have been changing. And in fact, and the reason I brought up fusion earlier, what they teach is that gravity causes fusion, gravity and high pressures. But the fusion that they're actually accomplishing are happening at magnetic Z-pinches. And that is something that I have been sharing. Now, the fact that you don't understand it is irrelevant. It just means that you're just one more person that'll have to relearn science in 20 years or whenever they decide to finally educate the public. In that time, they will have already crushed your economy. In that time, they will have ruined America. So I'm not going to watch it happen.
You said something about climate is changing on other planets, therefore climate change on Earth isn't man-made, right?
No, and not therefore it isn't man-made, because that would be illogical. But it is a strong indication that we should examine the data. And when we examine the data, all we find is variability in the electric and magnetic behaviors between the sun and the Earth. At the time Al Gore made his film, we had not measured the what they call magnetic flux ropes, which are nothing more than Berkeley currents, connecting the sun to the Earth. That was not a measurement until about 2014.
And okay, so the Earth? This is now. I haven't heard this claim, so I've never really had a chance to look it up. But my guess would be that other planets do not have an atmosphere that is designed to keep a constant climate, regardless. Therefore, like them changing.
Look, I'm Christian, but as far as I know, you're an atheist. So what do you mean designed?
Okay, so other planets aren't. Well, how else would I put it besides design?
No, because you don't know what you're talking about. That's all that means.
They're not made up of materials that would allow for a constant temperature, climate. But the Earth is.
And what, Cluck? Are you getting God right now?
Are you harping on me stumbling over my words?
I'm just being hilarious. What do you mean it was designed? The Earth has always had variability. The Earth has always had variability in its atmosphere. So you're not.
It's not variability, not to the extent the other planets.
Yes, if you go back and look, the amount of carbon dioxide in the environment during the time of the dinosaurs was drastically higher. Not even a little bit. It was so thick we would not really be able to breathe. It was very, very thick. And I'm talking actually before the dinosaurs.
You're talking about when the dinosaurs went extinct?
Before
life was able to. Oh, so before life was able to really sustain itself.
No. Do you not know this? There was a long time of life before. There were several mass extinctions before the dinosaurs' mass extinction. Did you know? You do know that, right?
Complex life.
Yes. Billions of years.
Okay.
You don't know this? Okay, so now you're educated. So you can watch their documentary series about the animals before the dinosaurs. They have nice, colorful computer graphics. You'll enjoy it, and you'll learn all about. We had species of dragonflies 2 feet long before the age of the dinosaurs, right? So the Earth was very different, very different.
And carbon dioxide was way higher then.
Yes.
And therefore, we shouldn't worry about it, right? That's your claim?
No, I didn't say don't worry about the climate change. I just said that it's going to happen. It's
Yes, Raymond, I already know that there's been times. Raymond, I already know there's. Raymond, no. You've already got your chance to talk. I already know there's been times. Wait a minute. No, I didn't this time. I asked you a question, you answered it. I already know that there have been times in Earth where we've had higher levels of carbon dioxide. Those are not times in which humans were living. So why are you bringing this up?
No kidding. Guess what?
Hey, can I bring up the fact that there was a study that they did in the Antarctic where they had drilled ice cores trying to prove that there was a carbon change in the Earth and a climate change, and they actually disproved the fact that there wasn't a change. It's always been changing, and the ice cores proved it with the,
So nobody denies. Wait. So nobody denies that the Earth has. Nobody says the Earth has never been through intense periods of temperature change or climate change in the past, billions of years in the past. What we're saying is
thousands of years.
What we are saying is that thanks to industrial revolution and the pollution that we put into the atmosphere, mainly carbon dioxide and methane, the rate at which the temperature, the climate is changing has increased to a point to where it's going to be incredibly hard for us to sustain the way of life we have on this earth right now.
Well,
All right.
that is a different issue. Okay,
Also-
first of all, the way of life that we have now is not sustainable. Okay, I'm doing a map. You hate conspiracy facts, but it's a fact. The United States military empire is way overblown, and some of the things that it has done are really bad for the
We're gonna
image
wrap
of the
this
people.
up, by the way. So start wrapping this
Okay.
up.
So
Wait, we
so
still didn't even get like oil prices. That's the shit that I actually researched.
well, I don't know.
Okay.
You want to
Hold on. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
I mean, that we all know that we have to make changes as a species. We have to make changes as a species, but it's not because suddenly Florida is going to disappear. That's just not what's happening.
Well, nobody's saying that suddenly Florida is going to disappear.
Some people are. There are some people that are
I
saying
mean,
that.
maybe pundits, but not scientists.
All right, let me ask this question. All right, we're gonna switch gears here a little bit. Is Biden to blame for rises in gas prices, or is it Putin?
Both.
I'll let Raymond answer. Well, let's focus more. Wait, hold on a second. So I don't think that Putin has that much to do with the current gas prices that we're seeing. I think that his effect is going to be seen in the future soon because they've adjusted the futures their futures based around the fact that we are now going to stop buying Russian oil. But I'm much more interested in the Biden conversation. So I'll let Raymond go ahead with it. Let's do the opening statement format. Since I've been accused of not taking a position, I'm going to go ahead and take a position. But I'm kind of curious. I want to hear what Raymond says first.
Okay, it's Ramon. That's the Spanish. Okay.
Oh,
So,
Ramon, I am so sorry. I actually do apologize for getting your name wrong over and over again. I'm not doing it on purpose.
I understand. So I agree about the Putin thing, except for one thing, is that he has already taken active steps in adjusting his country's economic position. And part of those included buying up gold for several years. So we knew that this was all coming. It's kind of hilarious that the entire Federal Reserve, or let's just call it the SWIFT banking system, the entire thing, from the financial to the planners, etc., they all think they can control this guy, even though he has so much gold. So they make public statements, and then they apply these sanctions. And I have a different theory as to what those sanctions are for and what they will do than Cluck does. And those are primarily what's causing the changes. But there is a huge caveat, which is there were, in fact, executive orders made in January of 2021. Almost the first thing, like pretty much the first thing that Biden did when he came in was undo the Trump energy policies. And insiders in the industry, Forbes magazine, CNBC, they all talked about it. It was a very openly talked about thing. However, they also said, oh, it won't be a big deal. Inflation's not a big deal. Remember when they were saying inflation's not a big deal? So now you go and look at the thing. You tell me, does Biden's executive orders have an effect? Does his position and posturing against Putin have an effect? And yeah, I agree. Most of the things that Putin will do will show up later. So I'll agree with him on that.
Okay, so my position is that Biden largely does not have much to do with the gas prices. I think that the best argument that you can have for that, and it's not even a very good one, is the idea that his posturing against the oil industry makes investors wary about investing into oil. But like any savvy oil investor will know that the United States can't get off of oil anytime soon, at least not to a point where it's not worth investing in. So I don't think that that's a very big factor in what's going on with the oil. I think that the bigger factor that's what's happening with oil.
Real quick, before you move on to that, what do you think the bigger factor is? You don't think that's a big deal that the president and the current administration in power has openly admitted that they're aligned against all forms of oil drilling or reclamation?
Well, that's not what they said. The executive order.
It actually is. Biden himself said that.
Okay, so Biden's executive order tried to ban new leases on public lands for drilling oil. They tried to. It didn't go through because it was fought in the courts. So, like,
well, as far as I know, the lands that are there are either those 9,000 lands compared to 35,000 under Trump. Those 9,000, like, they're not like oil rich or anything.
Right. Yeah, they're a lot of them are dead wells. And I want to point out, and sorry,
wait, don't I get an opening statement? Like, okay,
yeah, go ahead.
No, I got interrupted by Dronetek.
Yeah, you're right. It's
by
true.
the moderator.
Sorry.
Oh,
I stayed silent for a really long time.
All right, Chris Wallace.
I'm sorry. You're right, Cluck. You're right. My bad.
So where was I? So yeah, his posturing against the oil companies, I don't think has much effect on whether or not investors are going to invest in this commodity that everyone knows that people need. I think the bigger effect was the fact that oil prices went in the negatives in 2020, and oil companies and investors alike lost a lot of money then. So now they are refusing to drill because they want to try and make that money back for their investors. The other thing is that futures prices until recently, I'm not sure what they look like since the sanctions were against Russian oil were announced, but future prices were actually predicted to go down in the future. If oil companies are seeing that, and they're making a decision to whether they're going to invest money in drilling or not, they're probably not going to invest money in drilling because they don't want that price to go down even further. So those are probably the biggest two factors that are causing the rise in oil prices right now. This is just the fact that oil companies aren't drilling for various reasons, and they aren't drilling not because they don't have the land to drill. It's not because Biden is keeping them from getting the land that they need to drill, because there are thousands of acres that are still undrilled.
They are restricting.
I have some replies whenever you feel you've said your piece.
I'm sorry. My bad.
Okay, I'm almost done. There's thousands of acres that oil companies are just sitting on and not investing in drilling because they just want to make more money for their investors. And that's my piece.
Okay. So, I would love if someone in the audience who works in the oil industry can, fact check what Cluck just said. I will say that I have some dubiousness about your position because up till very recently, you didn't know the Keystone Pipeline actually was a working pipeline for many years. So I find it extremely problematic because you had the same position before, and even after getting new information, you didn't change your mind. However, I think that
can I say something that real quick?
Argument, well, let me finish my other points.
Okay.
Your futures assessment may or may not pan out. I'll be interested to see. As for whether or not they want to drill, I would think that we need to see someone from the inside the industry actually say that. However, the data about the prices is very clear. Yes, the prices fell off. The negative thing was a very specific situation. It was a market situation, an investment opportunity, and somebody made a killing off that. When the prices came back up, they kept rising beyond the average prices from before, and that's the key. The changes to the with the executive orders came in just before that steep incline. So the executive policies do make it.
I will say this: after he shut down Keystone, the pipe fitter industry, the pipe fitter union, they completely denounced Biden altogether, and they were actually Democrat supporters too. Everybody that's been a Democratic supporter has completely, stopped supporting him as far as all the unions and all. There's
that's great.
Are you in the oil industry?
So
yeah.
one thing,
No,
I'm
not in the oil industry, but I know a lot of people that are. But I'm a carpenter myself. But I can tell you about the carpentry industry too. All the stuff that we're going through and all that.
I guess in the public sector for the debate,
oil adjacent.
Having an opinion. I'm sorry.
I am oil adjacent.
Okay.
Jason,
Oh,
how do you feel about Cluck's statement? What do you? Does it seem true?
hold on, why does it matter? This is a conversation between me and you, first of all. Secondly, he could be like a secretary for, like, just because you're
Well,
part of the oil industry
hey,
doesn't mean you
look,
understand how the
look,
economics behind the oil.
Fair
Like,
enough. Fair
how
enough.
about you?
Fair enough.
How about you calm down and
No,
actually
he's
learn
right
how
though.
to
He's right though.
go with
It's fine.
you
It's
know?
fine.
He's
I
right
just
though.
am
It
curious
is a
to know.
discussion between him and
Well,
Raymond.
I'm,
Guys.
I'm just saying.
I wouldn't go
I'm
up
just
to
saying
like
that the
somebody.
last
I wouldn't go
time,
to a Walmart cashier and
He's
be
right.
like, "Hey, should I be investing in Walmart right now?" Like, that's not how that works. But I want to
was
say
going
something.
to interject earlier, but once I realized that this was actually some kind of quasi-formal debate, I damn near had to unplug my mic. But
We'll open it up
and
later,
I
guys.
appreciate
We'll
that.
open it up.
I
We'll
would,
open it
I
up.
would,
But
I
I
would
think we're near the end.
rather than just have me give statements about Cluck's statements on the oil industry. If you've got some more pointed questions, I'll answer them if I can.
Yeah, I guess Drone wants to have a Q&A thing afterwards.
Right.
So, Cluck, did you have a reply?
Yeah, so you mentioned the Keystone Pipeline thing. That after I found out that the Keystone Pipeline had been mostly completed and somewhat mostly operational, I still didn't change my position. That's because that fact, that fact actually makes my position stronger. Because people were blaming the Keystone, so people were blaming the destruction of the Biden canceling the Keystone Pipeline for the gas prices, saying things like, "Well, we were going to get shale oil from Canada, but then Biden canceled the Keystone Pipeline, and now gas prices are going up." Well, if the most of the pipeline was completed and already operational, if we were already getting that oil from Canada down to the south, with the pipeline that has been completed, then like that talking point is just moot, anyways. The only thing it would have did was make it easier to take oil 2 states over, I think it was. So like I don't really I don't go ahead.
You brought up futures. Okay, if you know that a pipeline is going to expand and you believe that your industry is going to benefit from that, the futures are going to indicate and price in that expansion. And when the pipeline is canceled, and when other policies, is that the only executive order that went through? It was Keystone. Other things, you're going to suddenly not want to produce oil, and you're going to start selling off. And who are you going to sell to? Foreign adversaries, foreign countries, OPEC, Venezuela, whatever. And the thing is, this happened before. And guess what? The people who voted for Obama
Can we stick to that one point? Can we stick to that one point, please?
But I want to make a point. This is an important point.
You're making a different point.
It's a historical point. And
Stop interrupting.
It's important. When Obama did that to coal, everyone on the left said because he had come in saying, "I'm going to get all this clean coal." Then he killed coal, and I know I watched it happen because my family is out there. And when he did that, then everybody on the left said, "Oh, he's not killing coal. Look at all the data. Don't believe your lying eyes." Meanwhile, Appalachia suffered, and that's the facts historically. The same thing is happening. It's called smash and grab economics.
Okay, so the point that you made about futures, my understanding is that oil company, the way that futures affect the oil prices, the actual mechanism in which futures affect oil prices is that oil companies will look at futures and what people are investing in, what people are predicting that the oil prices are going to do in the future, and make decisions on whether they're going to pump now based around that. So if something like a pipeline was going to make gas cheaper, they would probably pump less because they don't want to pump more oil into a market that's already going to have cheap oil. So like it would do the opposite.
Wouldn't do that.
Say that again.
What industry wouldn't do that? What organization wouldn't do that? Period.
No industry wants to saturate their market with supply.
No, you're making an argument. You're making an argument that all these big oil industries are just taking advantage of everybody, but then you're just saying that
that's not my
they're
argument.
taking advantage.
I never said taking advantage.
I don't think he's trying to sound like that. It may be that it tends to hear that way on account of when you are on
Other
the left.
people
That's
saying,
yeah,
yeah.
but that's not what he's saying. But I'm agreeing with what you're saying, but I'm not seeing, you're not connecting how that disproves the fact that Biden had executive orders that came out in January of 2021.
He did, yeah. Most presidents sign executive orders when they first get into office. That's correct.
Specifically about the oil industry, which was doing so well, and all of us were paying the cheapest gas that we had paid in 10 years. Specifically that? You don't think those things are connected?
No, I really
Well,
don't,
then
because they haven't been.
then you don't know
That is
anything.
kind of crazy,
all-
dude.
I'll
That's
just
kind
say
of
it.
crazy.
You
You
don't
think there's
understand.
no
hold on,
connection
hold
to
on.
that?
Raymond. You know, I took the biggest shit of my life, and before gas prices went up. Are those two things connected?
Wow.
Yeah, but
How is that
okay, hold on.
That's
Everybody,
the
hold
level of
on.
your argument?
Everybody, hold on. But Cluck, you have to admit that the
I agree.
president literally said during the debates, right, during the Democrat primaries, he said that he was like, no drilling, no anything. He's like, we're gonna completely cut off their ability to do anything. He said that. Well, I'm paraphrasing.
That was in the debates.
Yeah,
Correct.
he said that. He was like, we're gonna like fuck them up, basically.
It basically, that's how he lost that debate. Actually, that was everybody on the left freaked out because they were, what is he doing? That was going to alienate all the people in Pennsylvania, which is probably why they had to cheat to win Pennsylvania. But we won't change the subjects. Cluck, if the level of your debate is to talk about your bowel movements, I'll just go ahead and declare victory now. But I will tell you, the executive orders happened in January 2021. You can hate on that.
Mhm.
You can hate on the trend of the prices. All of us that pay gas, electric bills for our houses already understand this is abnormal stuff. Now,
Raymond,
wait,
you've already made a point. Can I please reply to your point?
Yeah.
Raymond,
Ask your question.
you saying, oh, he signed executive orders that has to do with oil in 2021. Gas prices went up, therefore those two are connected. Is just as asinine as me saying that I took a shit.
No,
That's why I
not.
said that.
It's not.
It really
is what is disturbing about your
Cluck.
line of thinking.
Cluck, what do you think about like people warning about inflation before the as they were promoting the new Green Deal? Oh, I'm sorry, the Build Back Better, which is basically a new Green Deal.
Right.
When they're promoting that, they were like, no,
wait,
they were
Dronetek,
saying there'd be no inflation,
I know what your question is.
and
I know
yet
what
there
your
has
question is.
been.
People, Dronetek, people have been warning about inflation since the 1990s.
Right, but like literally, it's like textbook kind of stuff. It's like
So wait, a broken clock is right.
No, it's not about a
Twice
broken
a day.
clock. It's like
That's what
it's like,
that is.
No, it's about
So
like it's like predictable a million miles away, and then there it is. It's like textbook predictable, and then there it is. That's what it is.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, but you see the one time where you guys or the right screaming, oh, inflation has actually been somewhat right, but you haven't seen the what was it, 22 years when y'all were screaming that it was wrong.
Cluck,
You are not
seriously,
qualified
stop.
to talk Canadian economics.
All right,
hold on.
at this point,
Hold on.
guys. All right, at this point,
Hold on.
I want to do some closing arguments, and we'll just kind of open it up. I
Yeah,
do want to do so. Here's what I want. I want to do a closing argument on this question. Is Joe Biden very simple? Is Joe Biden's policies, especially on energy, which I will point out are, as far as polls go, his energy policy, as far as it relates to oil production, is the most important thing to a majority of voters. It's his energy policy directly contributing to inflation and the gas prices. Or is it Putin? And that's closing
Do I
argument.
go first?
Yeah.
Okay, no, it's not directly contributing. The oil prices, gas prices would have went up. The oil companies have everything they need from the government in order to pump. They're just not doing it because they want to make higher profits because they lost a lot of money in 2020. That's pretty much as clean cut as I can make it.
Okay.
That's not bad. That's not bad. If my position is that is really quite extremely different, which is that Biden has participated in the purposeful killing of the American energy industry. And that's why the prices are going up. And that purposeful killing includes ridiculous sanctions, which everyone knows would not work anyways. And it's all just a dog and pony show. They are fleecing the American public out of the money. Now, I don't know if it's the big oil industry that is the primary beneficiary, because 20% of a million is a lot more than 20% of 100,000. But I would say that it's not good for America, in the same way that, you know, giant corporation, big box companies being in small towns kills small towns. It's not good to just allow foreign adversaries to participate in crushing our energy industry, buying it up, and then controlling it and never allowing it to be powerful. We will never achieve the energy independence the left says that they want that way. It just won't happen, because OPEC has no interest in greening up the planet. And that's my position. As for Biden, I would say Biden is more fraudulent than incompetent. And if he is incompetent, it comes from his mental increpitude. But, you know, I think it's actually purposeful. And I recommend that people take a look at what China has declared upon us, upon the Declaration of Independence, upon the Bill of Rights, and take it seriously and take steps to protect their families and prepare for what's coming. So that's my position.
Are we doing a Q&A? I got about 10 minutes before I want to go to sleep.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting there too, bro. Do you want to have a closing statement, or do you just want to do that Q&A?
No, just Q&A is fine.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, folks. So if you have any questions you want to throw to either of these guys, either Raymond or Liberal Cluck, I
don't have them. You'll have to read them out to me.
Right, I will. And then we'll open it up to whoever's in the channel here, and you guys can join us if you want.
Well, there's something I want to ask. Like, seriously, when the COVID pandemic happened, the price of petrol actually went below $1 during the early days of the pandemic. So how come that could actually happen?
Why did the price of oil go so low? That's what you're asking?
Yeah, so this was the lockdown. The demand for oil dropped drastically, and then the negative prices, it had to do with storage costs of the oil, and they basically needed to pay somebody to get rid of the oil because they could not afford the storage.
That's actually a pretty interesting argument. Like, it's amazing how society and government policy can influence how the cost of living actually works.
If I can actually interject on some of that, what it has to do with is there are so many refineries around the world, and they can refine so many barrels of oil per day. And they're built around a roughly constant demand ratio. Like there's actually some algebra that goes in behind it. And so your demand, this is why like gas prices in the summer always go up, is because that's when people take vacations, and instead of using, you know, like 2, 3, 4 tanks of oil or of gas per month, they go up to like 8 or 12 or 16 because they're traveling across country from California to New York to go see friends and family and stuff like that. Well, as Raymond said, when the COVID pandemic happened, right, and you had all of the big cities, which are the biggest demanders and users of oil, when they locked down and you have people not working, you know, or only your essential employees or whatever the hell they were doing, right, the demand dropped through the roof. They could not get rid of their refined oil. They had no place to store it. Refined petroleum products actually have a shelf life, and the modern shit where we're using our subsidized corn to actually make, you know, additional diesel and gasoline actually have a far shorter shelf life because of the acidity inherent in the corn based products. This is why like your flex fuel vehicles have different seals on them, different rubbers to actually handle the acidity, the increased acidity that goes along with using corn products in your gas tank. And so they couldn't get rid of what they had already refined as fast as they were used to. They can't store their refined product without it going bad and essentially going worse. And then the crude oil, like that, they've already. I mean, they actually calculate. I knew a guy that actually wrote some of the code for the SAP software that they use in actually ordering these products. And they literally, like, the units that they order stuff in are train cars, right? And so these orders and stuff actually go out like a year ahead of time, right? And so supposedly, like, no one actually knew that this stuff was coming, and that's why your bottom dropped off. Raymond is right. They were literally paying the tankers to keep crude oil offshore in the Gulf of Mexico because there was no point in refining it because they couldn't actually unload the product that they were making. And this is why the price per gallon or price per liter of petroleum products drop through the floor. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to is price per liter. To all those from America, I was referring to price per liter. Like it went down a bit below $1.
I gather that since you said it was $1, and I've lived a while, and I have not seen gas for less than $1 a gallon since sometime in the 90s when I first started driving.
And the answer's, I'm sorry to interrupt. The answer is essentially the same, because something that you got to understand is that, like, we aren't in a isolated oil market. We're in a global oil market. So if America's pumping more oil, it's going to drop prices for the world. If OPEC is pumping more oil, it's going to drop prices for the world. If the world is going through a pandemic, demand is going to drop for the world. Therefore, prices are going to drop all over the world. So yeah.
Yeah, we all agree on
so
that.
you actually said that if America pumped more oil, the price would go down. But isn't that the point of the pipeline?
No, the pipeline wasn't to pump more oil; it was to transport more oil. But we already had the pipeline, most of the pipeline built. The pipeline would have just transported it from I think it's like Arizona to New Mexico or some shit.
No, so the pipeline the Keystone Pipeline, right, is actually designed to tap into the tar sands up in Canada.
Yeah, we already had that part.
The important thing to realize about this, okay, is that back in the 90s when this pipeline was first proposed, okay, scientists were actually against it, not because of economics, not because of petroleum reasons, not because of climate reasons. Scientists were against it because they said the quality of the crude oil was too low to remotely be economically affordable or to be clean enough to actually be used for anything other than heating oil or possibly some really old crude diesel.
They've come up with new products, and so they are more interested in it. But the point is, if there were more flowing, if the executive orders hadn't ended that, the prices would absolutely be lower. They would be lower. I have no idea what Cluck's position. I don't understand where he's coming up with his idea. But
how much lower do you think they would be?
Price would be lower. It would probably.
Well, first of all, it wouldn't be done by now.
Let me ask you a question. It would probably be about the average price that oil prices were before the lockdown crash. Probably.
You think that it would go down by an entire $1? If we were able to transport oil through a pipeline, because let's keep in mind it's already being transported in other ways. If we were able to transport oil 2 states over, you think that the oil would go down by $1?
But the logistics would actually cost more.
What do you think the cheapest way to transport oil is?
It's going to be the pipeline.
He's asked a specific question. I thought this was people asking
not
questions.
just. I want to throw out there not just cheapest, but actually most environmentally friendly.
Yes,
it depends on what part of the environment you're talking about.
And so, whenever America just completely shuts down all their pipelines, all right, all of them, like they're literally trying to shut down all of them over the Green New Deal, over all that stuff you were talking about earlier. You know, even though it wasn't passed, it is still getting passed. All right, that's what I was trying to get to you before. All right, you know, all this Green New Deal stuff, it's getting passed and it's not helping. We've been going
Well, you
to
know what
this
would be good?
over
You know what would
over
be
the
good is that
generations. We've been going to this over generations for a long time. All right, in America,
I have a
when you
question.
want to talk about the energy industry, they have shut down since Trump. They've completely shut down all energy independency
We
for
might have a
America
question.
Wait, no,
altogether.
no, wait, hold on. That's another thing. Wait, we're
That's
still
that
energy and
is the,
wait,
that is
no, wait,
exact. No,
no,
we are
no,
We're
not
we
not.
are.
energy
We
independent
are.
at all
What do
Yes,
you mean
we
by
are.
whatsoever.
people
Yes,
on
we
camera,
are.
by the way?
no,
Drone
we're
covered this
not.
in a
If we're
video.
energy
Been watching.
independent, we would have prices lower.
That's also
Right.
not true. But
Drone covered this in a video.
Yeah,
Yes, it
I
is.
did
we wouldn't
actually.
be we wouldn't be
Under
asking for
Trump,
OPEC in
under
wait,
Venezuela.
Trump, we
wait,
had
Hold on.
we
Let
were a
Cluck
net
respond.
exporter of
Let's
energy
let Cluck
under Trump.
respond. Cluck, did you watch Drone's video?
I don't watch Dronetek's videos, as I would imagine he doesn't watch my videos
Okay, well,
either.
there you go.
Oh,
You don't know.
I do watch some
but
of
no,
them.
we are in.
Hold on. Let Drone explain to you
Okay.
how the numbers were wrong.
Can he start? Can he start with the definition of energy independent? I want to make sure we're talking about
Energy
the same.
independent. Well, here's what I think. Energy independent
Dronetek.
is
No,
actually
let Drone did the video. Let's see, because Drone covered how they were live about this. So I want him to actually answer
Wait, what am I
Okay.
answering? What am I answering exactly?
about the energy independence topic that you had covered.
Yeah,
on
I
video.
mean, so yeah, the pipe, like you hear a lot. Saki always talking about, oh, it's just the pipeline would not affect anything, and that's not actually true. And she's always like, oh, it's just like a tool for transporting. Yeah, but for one, transporting is going to be way cheaper. It's going to be more cost effective. It's going to be more environmentally friendly, as long as there's no leaks, obviously, which are rare, right? Way more rare than vehicle like truck crashes and that kind of thing. And over time, quick amount of time, like just a couple years, if that, like we're going to be seeing the benefits of that. And just those pipelines going, just that happening on its own has an effect on the market. And also, we in this country could be actually, you know, they talk about the cost. If we're getting our own oil, guess what? We decide the cost, or obviously the companies that are drilling it decide it. But obviously, if it's an American company drilling American oil, we're gonna get the benefit of the doubt on that, right?
Yeah, I would say that
No, absolutely not.
Oh, you just cut way into me. Trump's whole "Make America Great Again." People were like, "Oh, he wants to go back to like civil rights issues and segregation." That was all bullshit. What he really wanted was a dominant America, like he grew up with, and that is exactly what his vision was: energy independence, true energy independence, not global economy into energy independence, but actual subsistence on our own. That's what his vision was.
Right, and we can easily do that. We can do it easily. And those, by the way, those 9,000 sites, I did want to just throw in there. Like from everything I've read, I've been trying to read as much as I can, as far as I've could read. Basically, the deal with those sites is that they're shit sites, and it's going to cost money to explore them, and they already know that there's not enough oil on there for them to be to be good, and they need more sites. And Biden and his administration have openly expressed that they are not going to give out those permits, and they have given out way less than Trump gave out. Trump gave out, I want to say, around 35,000 or something around there, which there should have been more than that, but 9,000, like that's way less. And you got to understand it's a numbers game with oil, right? Because it's
okay. So wait, you were supposed to be answering the question about energy independence. I didn't hear anything about energy independence.
Well, the whole idea, it's the whole idea. The whole idea is that like we're drilling and getting all of our own oil and then exporting extra.
Okay, so do you know what the word do you know what the term energy independence means?
Oh my God, here we go.
Yeah, get a dictionary.
Why do you do that?
Energy independence. All of our energy comes from our country, and we're not dependent on any other country.
So
or if we're dependent on anybody for anything, it's at least our allies.
So typically when we talk about energy independence, it means that we are exporting more oil than we are importing. That's what they.
Right.
When
That's
they,
what I just said.
When they said,
That's exactly what everybody's
You don't have to export more than you're
the
importing.
entire time.
You just have to
that's
like
not,
be.
That's not true.
You just have to have enough to cover your own self, and then exporting is just extra. I mean, that doesn't even. That's not.
That's exactly
has
it.
nothing to do with it.
You said a whole lot of something.
If America produced more oil for its own than export it, our prices would go down because we have more oil and petrol to actually use, which means the logistics and exporting costs would go down because we're exporting less oil for other countries and we're using it for ourselves. So of course it would go down because we're not exporting too much of it to other countries.
The idea is we're not dependent on fucking Russia, Iran, Venezuela, Saudi Arabia. That's all that really matters.
I will have an analogy that will help Cluck. Okay, there's a difference between cash flow independence, which is where your income exceeds your expenses, and just making a lot more money than you spend. Those are not. That's not the same thing, and you're mixing.
No. So when you look up what it. So when you look up what they meant by Trump was energy independent, that is what they meant. They were exporting more oil than they were importing, and it wasn't even more oil.
That might be true. That might be true. I'm not gonna.
Whether or not we were truly energy independent under Trump, it was definitely a better situation under Trump.
Pause for a second. All right, Cluck. I think you seriously have an emotional.
Come on. Let's not get personal. Let's just all of us. Let's not get like that.
No, every time you talk to Ramon, you get a completely different tone with people.
All right. Come on.
Just saying.
Okay.
All right.
Under his skin. I will admit freely, I've been teaching him the ways of Yuri Bezmenov. So
I don't even know what that name is. Anyways,
you don't know that name. You don't know that name.
If there's one goddamn thing you need to learn in life, you need to watch the 1984 interview with Yuri Bezmenov.
You should watch
that guy. Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. He's a nutcase. Anyway,
he could be, I guess. I don't really know.
Can we please get back to this idea of energy independent?
Yes. Stop. Everybody stop. Let's let Cluck say something, and then on to Raymond, who is the person he's arguing with.
So when people say we were energy independent under Trump, what they meant was that we had more exports than we did imports. But it wasn't even like all oil. It was all the oil products put together that we had more exports than imports. But when it comes to crude oil, we still had more imports than we did exports. And that's the exact same situation that we are still in today. We have overall more exports than we do imports. But when it comes to crude oil, we have more imports than we do exports. And when people try to say things like if we were energy independent, that would make gas cheaper, that's just not true. Because a gas company is not going to give America favorable prices when they can sell their oil to another country at a higher price.
That's not a bad point. That's not a bad point.
Hold on, I got to reply.
That's not a bad point.
Okay,
I think he might be right about that, actually.
Yeah, he might. Your argument is sort of like a vaccine could work if you change the name and definition of what a vaccine is, and then it would work. The simple fact is you might be right about what they were saying under Trump. I never understood us as being yet energy independent. I understood us as heading towards energy independence, which means we don't need energy. The real definition of energy independence is we don't need energy from adversaries like Venezuela, Iran, Russia, etc. Then we have all of our own energy here. We have all the oil and natural gas that we need to then recreate our industry and create true green energy, such as thorium nuclear. While we're here arguing about gender pronouns, China is building a thorium nuclear reactor. So
real quick, Raymond, can I just?
All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So real quick, I just went back in my Discord and typed in a search bar energy independent, and I have a message from you. According to this, we were energy independent in 2021. So it looks like you were under the impression that we were energy independent.
Are you talking about an article that got shared?
I guess.
Okay. Are we just going to start? I'm just going to start pulling up actual random articles about the subject. I'm telling you what most of us who understood what "Make America Great Again" meant. It meant that America would be strong enough. We would have more jobs. We would have good trucking. Families would be promoted. Taxes would be low. And energy independence. And energy independence means we don't have to rely on adversaries, including China, for energy and sources of products. And that would be all of our logistics. We have a huge logistics dependence on China, and we're undoing it. It's called decoupling, but it's going to take a long time. And there are a lot of vested interests trying to keep us from decouple with China. And it ain't just China. There are internal parties that are trying to keep that from happening because they have investments in America and in China. And it's a huge, huge problem. And all of these issues are related. If you don't see they're related, then I can't help you with that.
All right, guys.
But I can tell you the energy issue is crucial, which is why it was the first thing the Biden administration did. They came in and destroyed what Trump had done.
I will give you credit on one thing. I do appreciate you changing your stance when I presented you with more information. So that's really
that wasn't more information. You're quoting information I shared. What the hell are you talking about?
Let me just say real quick. It's actually been a really good. I thought this has been a really good discussion between Cluck and Raymond. They're both really knowledgeable people, real smart people, and I've actually really enjoyed listening to you guys. I would like to continue this, but I'm tired and I got to be up early.
Okay.
Here's the thing. We're going to continue. Anybody who wants to continue here in the channel, if you guys want to join us, people who are watching, come on over, join us. I welcome you. I do appreciate Cluck coming over here. Check out his YouTube channel. Check out his Discord.
I don't have one anymore. I don't do any of that anymore.
Okay. Well, he's a good guy either way.
Not until I get internet.
He's a good guy either way. He comes in here. Look at this. He's one guy. There's like a dozen people in this channel. So good for him. And I think he argues his side very well and respectfully. And I appreciate that. Thanks, Cluck.
All right, no problem. Y'all have a good night.
You too, man.
And
you too as well. Thanks a lot, Raymond, man. You're a smart mofo, and I'm glad you're around here.
Oh, no problem. And I will gladly hang out and discuss the issues. I am going to play some video games though, so as long as
I might do a little before I go to bed as well. So, all right, guys, fun night. We'll do this again. Try to organize something like this next Thursday. Everybody, thanks for watching, and I will catch you all next Thursday and tomorrow as well.
All right, see you guys.
Cool.